Welcome, everyone. My name is Amy Andrieux. I'm the Executive Director of MoCADA, which stands for the Museum of Contemporary African Diasporan Art. I always forget that for some reason. And I am joined by my esteemed colleagues, Lisa Gold of the Asian American Arts Alliance, as well as Justine Lee, also from Asian American Arts Alliance. And welcome to the Bandung 2023 Residency Program Info Session. We're really excited because this is our second go around of this amazing program, which builds solidarity or fosters solidarity between the AAPI community and the Black community. And we're honored to have you here with us to kind of go through some of the main points of the residency program, some questions that we're sure that you're asking, to let you know about the timing for the application process, how we're going about the application process. We'll walk you through that, as well as what the kind of panel reviewer kind of component looks like for our selection process, and what happens after that. So before we begin, I didn't even do an accessibility check. I am a Black woman with my hair tied up in a black and white bandana with some huge headphones on my head in front of a blue wall. But I'd also like to pass the mic to Lisa and also to Justine before we begin the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Amy. I'm Lisa Gold, she, her, hers. I'm the Executive Director of A4. And I am I'm a Hapa woman, half Korean, half white, woman with a grayish brown hair, bray. And I'm sitting in a very dark room with a kind of burgundy sweater and a feminist gold necklace. I am very excited about this second cohort. I'm so happy that you're here with us tonight. We want to hear your questions, and we hope that you'll apply because we were just so blown away by the last cohort of artists, their commitment to each other and to the work and the community. So we're really excited to hear from you and your ideas and your application. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to ask at the end. That's why we're here, to help you through it, because we want to hear from you. So I'm going to turn it over to Justine Lee.
Hi, everyone. You've probably seen my name floating around, or at least my email address. I am the programs director at Asian American Arts Alliance, A4 for short. And like Amy and Lisa, I'm very excited for this second cohort. The first cohort was such an honor to be a part of, even just a small part. And we learned a lot from that first cohort. So a lot of our learnings we have implemented into the second cohort. It's going to be a slightly longer program, and there will be more check-ins, and we'll go over that in a bit. But just wanted to let you know that there's a lot of thought that went into creating this second one for you all.
New and improved.
New and improved, exactly. I guess a quick accessibility check for me. I am an East Asian woman with medium length Black hair, and I'm wearing a navy blue long sleeve shirt, and I am happy to be here. And with that, I will turn it back over to Lisa. Are you going to be doing for the land acknowledgement?
I am muted. Okay, I'm happy to do land acknowledgement. Sorry. Okay, do you want me to, okay, I will read the one that you have prepared. Okay, so this is a digital land acknowledgement because we are all zooming in from different places. So A4 and MoCADA reside in a network of hills and rivers in the coastal Atlantic Northeast known as Lenape-Hoking, the ancestral land of the Lenape and Canarsie peoples. Today, we are connected online via a different system, a vast array of servers, cables, and computer devices maintained by human actors. In the United States, much of this infrastructure sits on stolen land, acquired under the extractive logic of white settler expansion. As partner organizations focusing on solidarity, we recognize this history and uplift the sovereignty of Indigenous people, data, and territory. We commit beyond symbolic rhetoric to dismantling all ongoing settler colonial practices and their material implications on our digital worlds.
Woohoo! Like, now the agenda. Exciting. Thank you, Lisa. So as I mentioned before, we are going to be talking about the context. What was the founding principles of this residency program, what the residency actually consists of, the timeline, eligibility, application components, selection criteria, and then, as Lisa said before, at the end, we will be making time for Q&A. Keep in mind that this is being recorded, so we will share this on our platforms post this conversation. So any questions that you have, feel free to leave them in the chat as we go along. You don't have to wait to the end to send those questions in. We will be looking at the chat for those. But in addition to that, you can ask them in real time. Beyond that, any question that comes to us via email, we will be consolidating with the FAQ that is already posted for your review, et cetera, et cetera. So next slide, please. Context. So A4, Lisa spoke about this. A4 is a nonprofit organization dedicated to ensuring greater representation, equity, and opportunities for Asian American artists and cultural organizations through resource sharing, promotion, and community building. MoCADA uses the visual and performing arts as a point of departure for exploring new artistic productions across a variety of disciplines through exhibitions, community program, and educational initiatives centered in social justice. We incite dialogue on pressing social and political issues facing the African diaspora and foster a dynamic space for the creation and continuous evolution of culture. This Bandung 2023 residency was made possible through the New York State AAPI Community Fund, the Ford Foundation, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, and the New York City Department of Youth and Community Development. And we thank them tremendously for making this possible for us for the second cohort. Next slide, please. So a little bit of context. In 2020, and I have to give props to Lisa Gold here for this. In 2020, our communities were deeply impacted by, the Stop Asian Hate movement and the Black Lives Matter movement. And Lisa approached MoCADA. She approached us and said, hey, what if we did something in collaboration to create solidarity between our two communities? How could we do that? How could we essentially give platform to artists, educators, organizers in New York City to build bridges between our communities? And I found that to be really phenomenal that she was thinking in this way, because it's something that, there's a legacy of solidarity between our communities since, time before time, right? There are many different examples that we can pull from. And, I was so excited when Lisa mentioned the Bandung Conference of 1955, which brought together, I believe it was 29 different countries from Asia and from Africa who were newly independent, who said, let's come together to kind of think of the future. What does the future look like for us, working in collaboration, working in solidarity, supporting one another, and looking forward to just again, creating systems, non-oppressive systems that can enable our communities to grow together, independently, et cetera. So this residency program is born from that idea. And from as I said, many of the solidarity movements that have shared our communities' voices throughout the years. Next slide, please. Residency. Also, I should share about the Bandung Conference. I had heard about the Bandung Conference before we started talking about this, but I have to say, thank you, Lisa. Again, I'm always singing Lisa's praises. Thank you for, really suggesting that we go with that as the impetus for this residency program, because as I've gone deeper and deeper into research, it's really inspirational what was done during that time, at a time that it was unheard of for our communities to come together in that kind of way, in a political way. So again, this residency, in terms of where it was born from, it's born from that transformational energy. What can we dream of together? What can we build together? So the objectives here, for this cohort, just like last cohort, we're looking at identifying 7 to 10 New York City-based visionaries, that's my favorite word on the planet, visionaries, to go through a 4-month-long hybrid program of self-directed and group learning exchanges. And what that means is essentially within our residency program, you have an idea, a community building idea or project, it could be an artistic project that you're looking to bring to life that you feel will be transformational for these communities to come together, to, again, building solidarity. You may have an idea, you may have something that has already begun in some way, shape, or form, but you want to evolve it in some way. So during this 4-month process, you will be working on that. That will be part of your task. But the other part of the task is, ensuring that you're going through the learning exchanges that we will kind of create. So we are working with anti-oppressive organizer and thought leader, YK Hung, who is phenomenal. If you haven't heard about them, you should absolutely check out their work on their website, which I believe is ykhung.com, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm checking it out really quick. I'll get back to you in the chat on that one. But YK Hung leads our group learning exchanges, which kind of explores, these are closed door sessions, which kind of explores some ways to do the work that we inspire to do within our communities, but within ourselves. So that this is not just looking at how to transform society, but how to transform ourselves in the process. How do we learn from the work that we're actually trying to build? In addition to that, we will also have presentations from thought leaders within these communities who speak about their projects that they've been working on for, recent projects or projects they've been working on for many, many years that may be inspiring to you as you're going through the residency process. So again, the residency is about uplifting the work of organizers, artists, educators, and waymakers. The idea here is to propel forward the spirit of solidarity crystallized during the 1960s, 70s, I'll even say 80s and 90s. I'm a big fan of Grace Lee Boggs, so I'm always going to uplift her work. Also centering the historical and contemporary issues faced by AAPI and Black communities. I think this is really important. Stopping here for a second, because I think what was really great, and I think Lisa touched on this, Lisa and Justine both touched on this at the top of the conversation, this idea of creating solidarity amongst the cohort. This was a very organic process. We have a little family that has kind of developed, as a result of this residency program, and as a result of kind of going through these kind of group learning exchanges and processing together. But I think there's something that's really important about inviting community into the conversations that you're going to create through your projects, right? So centering those historical and contemporary issues so that we can have conversations about them, so we can heal as a collective body of humans, so to speak. Deepen each participant's relationship with themselves, as I was just talking about, their practice, other participants within the cohort, and most especially with the communities identified. How do we do that? How do we engage the communities that we're talking about, AAPI and Black communities? Are there community groups that you can participate with, that you can involve in your programming in some way, shape, or form in terms of your project? Are there young students? Education has been an important component in some of the past projects. We're not saying that that's the only component, but that has been a consistent through line. Is that something where you can involve students of the AAPI and Black communities into your program in terms of workshopping and things like that, as an example? Or can we talk about communities? Can we talk about Chinatown? Or can we talk about Little Senegal in Harlem, et cetera, et cetera? How do we forge those bridges? We want to encourage connections with local leaders and community members to inspire unity through the lens of an artistic presentation, a shared exploratory experience, or a special project, e.g., or in other words, a public art piece, a performance, a walking tour, ephemeral installations, community building activities. As an example, we had a collective in our last cohort that was working on workshops about friendship between the communities, and what does that look like? And looking at it through the lens of how could these workshops work for young people, for elders, for folks who are first generation, et cetera, et cetera. So there are many different lenses that you can look at this through, but in terms of objectives, these are the key objectives that you should be thinking about while filling out your application and thinking about the project you want to present in that. Next slide, please. Components, yes, this is a dynamic safe space to engage in social justice discourse, restorative healing, I'm gonna say that again, restorative healing, cultural placemaking, and when we say cultural placemaking, we're talking about uplifting the shared values and cultures, but additionally educating each of the communities about, cultural nuances that may not be so readily apparent. I think that's always important. And expanding the narrative between the communities and creating a cross-community allyship, right? That's what solidarity is all about. As mentioned before, there'll be 4 learning exchanges led by anti-oppression coach YK Hung, and YK Hung's website is ykhung.com. Thank you, Lisa. And also keepbeyond.com. I think
Keep Beyond is the one that she uses for anti-oppression. They use for anti-oppression, yeah.
I think they're both the same, actually. I think they're mirrors of each other, but yes, Keep Beyond, let's stick with that, that's easy. Again, in addition to those 4 learning exchanges, which are closed door sessions, I repeat, there are community conversations and workshops that are led by community voices, community leaders, or thought leaders. These are open to the public, but there will be portions of those sessions that will be closed to just the residents to ask personal questions about their individual projects, etc. Now, in terms of funding, each artist or collective will receive an honorarium of $1,500 to participate in the residency. But in addition to that, they will receive an additional $1,000 of additional support, production support to execute their project. Now, executing the project can look like many different things. In the past, we have been very open to what execution looks like because we know that art making and waymaking is an evolving process. So we don't want to limit you in any way, but we do hope that you are thinking about presenting it to the community in some way, shape, or form. So that fund, that second fund, is to support that in some way, shape, or form. And of course, the final component is connecting with community leaders and members. That is really, really important. It's very easy as artists, as organizers to create an idea and, kind of stay within our bubbles, but we want to make sure that we're encouraging our residents to think outside of those bubbles and to build connections, to deepen those connections that you may already have. And to think about, what I like to call, excuse me, or what many of you may be familiar with already, design justice, looking at how to allow those communities to be active stakeholders in your project in some way, for allowing their voices to rise within that creation process. Next slide, please. Timeline. Ooh, this is the fun part. Okay, so applications are currently open, guys. So you know that, you're here, spread the word. If you find that, maybe this cohort is not the time for you, maybe you wanna wait till the next cohort, because we're gonna do this again, I promise you. Share the word, spread the word anyhow, because we definitely wanna make sure that we have a wide group of applicants, and that we are thinking about to ensure that we are representing all identities. Let me say that. But the application is open currently, and that's not to discourage you, by the way. I'm not saying wait till the next cohort. I'm saying if in the event you decide that the next cohort is the one that you're thinking about as opposed to cohort 2, that's fine. We are still here. We're not going anywhere. But if you are going to apply, applications are currently open, and application deadline is actually January 9th, top of next year, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please, 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 please do not wait until 11:50 to submit your application. We all know what that's like when all of a sudden the internet is not working and we can't get our grants in, our applications in, we can't get our residency applications in, etc. Please, if you can, try to do it a couple of hours before, give yourself time, use a Word doc, a Google Doc, or what have you, to kind of, workshop some of your answers beforehand. And when you're ready, copy and paste into the application and then press submit. Do that a couple of hours before 11:59 so that one, the site doesn't crash, and two, because this is on JotForum, one, the site doesn't crash, and two, it ensures that your application is in before the deadline. After that, we will announce the cohort on January 25th, 2023, and then on January 3rd, and we're talking about 7 to 10 artists, organizers, etc. total. And then on January 30th, the inaugural cohort public share out. So that's cohort 1 will be sharing out with a Q&A session. And the new cohort will be invited to attend that public share out. So you can meet some of the residents from the inaugural cohort and see what they've been working on for the last few months, what have you. On February 7th, the residency cohort 2 begins with introductions. Week of February 7th, there'll be one-on-one check-ins, and one-on-one check-ins are essentially check-ins with, so we're doing it, and guys, Lisa and Justine, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but we're looking at about 3 to 4 check-ins, one or two of which will be with Lisa and myself. One could be with one of the mentors that we've identified, and those mentors would be residents from the inaugural cohort. And then the third or fourth is optional. You can choose who you can do your check-in with. And the check-in essentially is kind of just talking through your project in general, where you are, how you're kind of envisioning realizing the project, what issues you may be having, what challenges you may be facing, looking for advice on how to engage with community or how to kind of ladder up to or scale to a particular idea. It runs the gamut. We've also had conversations where, because we're working on such transformational projects, sometimes the idea of, what's the word I'm looking for? When you think you're not ready, but you are ready. What's the, oh my God, my brain is just went.
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Thank you. I was like, why can't I remember this? Yes. We even had conversations about imposter syndrome because, this is heavy work. This is absolutely heavy work. But what we have realized is that, many of the residents have always had the tools. It's just about, reminding what you have access to and, understanding the power of collaboration, sharing with the other cohort, the other residents, because it is I'm telling you, it's a powerful force of empowerment and enabling one another to reach that finish line. And also working with, with us and, YK, as mentioned before. And then on February 15th, we'll have the first learning exchange with YK. I so want to sit in on that, but we're not sitting in. Lisa, Justine, and I do not sit in on the learning exchanges. Those are closed door sessions with YK. And then on February 28th, there'll be a cohort meeting with a presenter. So a cohort meeting is essentially when all the residents come together and we have a thought leader present, usually a workshop or kind of a journey through one of their projects or several of their projects. On March 8th, a second learning exchange with YK. On March 21st, a second cohort meeting with another presenter. In the week of March 27th, a one-on-one check-in at the midpoint of the residency. Again, the residency is 4 months. Then on April 12th, the third learning exchange with YK. And next slide rather. Thank you. Then on April 18th, the third cohort meeting with yet another presenter. May 10th, a learning exchange with the final learning exchange with YK. on May 16th. This is the second to last cohort meeting. And then week of the 15th, one-on-one check-ins, as I mentioned, those are 4 of them. There are 4 of them. And I believe this one is optional. And then on May 30th, the final cohort meeting where there is the project share out. Last year, we did this on Governor's Island. We may be able to do it on Governor's Island again this year, but always fun. I think we have pictures somewhere of that final cohort meeting. But again, this timeline is really important because we really, really encourage that you participate in all of these sessions. Now, we do understand that, you know, as of right now, we're at the end of November. You may not know these dates this far in advance, but if you do have your schedule this far out and you know that you are not going to be available for dates, if you could include that in your application, I think that would be helpful to know. It won't hurt you, but it would be helpful to know because we are still processing dates, et cetera, but this essentially is the framework. Again,
but also I just wanted to note, if you're part of a collective,
yes,
you can have one representative attend. You both or 3 or however many are in your collective. You don't all have to be present, as long as at least one will represent and bring the information back to all of you.
Right, exactly. Thank you for that. I completely forgot about that. Good point. All right.
And just like one more thing I wanted to add is that, you know, as you know, we mentioned before, we got feedback from the prior cohort, and one thing they really wanted was more time together. Yeah. You know, they wanted more time with YK, they wanted more time with each other. And so we added we added additional sessions to be able to make that happen. Because it was COVID times, we had to do a lot of the meetings via Zoom, but we did one in person kind of pizza party. And then we had we had our final share out in person. But we will determine whether these are all online or if it's going to be a mix of in real life and Zoom. But we will, hopefully we can do more in person, as long as people continue to behave and not get the flu.
That part. Exactly. Thank you, Lisa, for sharing that. Absolutely great points. So now when we talk about eligibility, you must be a resident of New York City, not New Jersey, not Connecticut, New York City. This is really hard for us because I know during this process, this informational session process, for the first cohort, many people were asking us, when are you going to bring it to the West Coast? When are you going to bring it to the Midwest, et cetera, et cetera. This is just our second go around. So we're honored to share space with each of you. And we definitely, I don't know. I would say this, right now we're focusing on New York City. If there is room for us to expand, I think we will do that, but we're still taking our time to get there. But we encourage other organizations who are working on who may be interested in working on this in their regions to do so. But right now we're just focusing on New York City. Next slide. Oh, all disciplines and stages of artistic exploration, activism, community organizing, educational practice, and thought leadership are welcome. This is absolutely true. So you don't have to be a mid-career artist. You don't have to be an A-lister. The whole point is to have interest and a pure intention about doing this work and have a solid idea about creating a bridge between communities. Ideally, if you have experience in any of these areas, we want you to tell us about that. If you have an idea that you are expanding upon, we want you to tell us about that, because that's always inspiring to see. But I think it's very, very important that we are representing all identities, all stages of artistic exploration and disciplines, absolutely. So don't shy away if this is, if you are an artist who has been creating works, but has never ventured into the quote unquote social justice space. Again, that's what the learning exchanges are for. That's what the presentations and workshops are about. It's about engaging you further and deepening that exploration into social justice practices so that you can develop a deeper insights into just this space in general. Next, thank you. A demonstrated willingness or interest in community work and fostering solidarity between communities. So let's say you've worked as an organizer in a community center, or let's say you've worked as an educator in an after-school program, or let's say you were someone who built art for a movement. All of those obviously are important. They're aligned and they show a demonstrated willingness or interest in community work. Let's say you're a journalist who's written an article about it and want to explore that more deeply. I know one of the, or actually a collective also from the first cohort, is working on archival systems and looking at how to document some of the work that has been done within this solidarity movement between our two communities. So all of that shows a willingness or interest in community work. And that can look different depending on whether you're focusing, again, on art, if you're focusing on education, or you're looking at organizing in general, or thought leadership. A proposed project. A project is important. So we all have intention, right? But in terms of eligibility, it's really important to see that intention materialized in a structure in some way, shape, or form. So if you have an idea, how does that idea ladder up into a project? So let's say you're interested in documenting, I'm gonna use the example of Hademi, another artist from the last cohort who was interested in exploring mixed race children and people representing AAPI and Black communities. This was taking cue from her personal life, where her children are both Japanese and Haitian. So as a photographer, Hademi was seeking out kind of folks who would allow her to photograph them and tell their stories, essentially. So she's a photographer, but how does she bring that to life through a project? That could be a book, that could be an exhibition, et cetera, et cetera. So thinking that through all the way, as opposed to just stopping at intent. Next, please. A spirit of generosity and in fostering a collaborative, close-knit community. Justine hit this on the head originally at the top of the call. The first cohort, they are truly a family. If you follow any of them on social media, they're loving each other in the comments, they're liking each other's posts, they're sharing posts, they're going to events together. You know, it's amazing. And we want to continue that. You know, obviously we want that to be organic, but in order for that to be organic, we all have to come into this space, this shared safe space, with a spirit of generosity and collaboration. How do we collaborate? How do we support one another? How do we offer tools that we may have that, you know, another resident may not have? How do we, you know, how do we offer knowledge so that collectively we're growing together? So that is the spirit of generosity and in fostering a collaborative, close-knit community is about. But also bringing in folks that you may be collaborating with already in terms of extending the community network. So when we have share outs, you know, ensuring that folks in your community are aware of the work that you're doing. If there are people in your community that can be supportive in some way, shape, or form to projects that are happening within the cohort, connecting each other and allowing that to grow. So that is the spirit of generosity and collaborative, close-knit community that we refer to when we say that here. An interest in using this residency as a platform to promote cross-cultural messaging of healing and unity. That's what we're here for. We can't stress this any further. Again, fostering solidarity is all about healing and unity. We said that this was about restorative healing for ourselves and for our community. We are all learning. Oh, sorry, I'm just seeing the closed captioning. We're all in a process of learning and unlearning and healing. So it's important that as we build, that we're using this as an opportunity to support that organically through our communities. So as we learn, share out. As we grow, share those experiences. I wish, this is something that I think was happening anyway, but I wish initially when we did the first cohort, that we incorporated journaling of some sort, because there was such a transformation of the residents from start to end, because there was so much, again, learning and unlearning through the process. But also supporting one another, coming into the space in a non-judgmental way, and understanding that everyone doesn't arrive at the same place. Everyone doesn't start from the same place, but knowing that we all have an intention to grow together, that we all have an intention to learn from one another and to learn in general, and to just, again, heal from some of the oppressive systems that our communities are facing.
There was just like such an amount of compassion and respect among the cohort. It was just so beautiful.
And still, because you would think that, after the residency is done, okay, we go back to our normal lives. No, they're continuing. So it's really beautiful to witness. Actually really inspiring. Again, eligibility open only to individual participants or participants working in collaboration collectives, right? Organizations may not apply. So if you are a nonprofit organization, you cannot apply. If you are an individual working as an artist, an educator, or organizer, or thought leader, you can apply. If you are an individual working with 3 other individuals as part of a collective or as part of a special collaboration, you can apply. But if you are 3 or 4 individuals who work for a nonprofit organization or an organization, an LLC, etc., you may not apply. Make sense? Hope so. Next slide. If you are a degree earning student at the time of this residency, so we're talking about from January 9th to, what is that, May 16th? Did I get that date right? I think I did. You may not apply. Unfortunately, we're looking for artists, activists, educators, organizers, thought leaders who are not currently in school, who are not currently students at the time of the residency. So please just wait until after you complete your education, and you can circle back to the next cohort. And you must be at least 18 years of age. That's about it. I think that's self-explanatory. 18 years of age at the time of application, correct? I think that's fair. Yes, so the application, as I said, is open as we speak. This is the link. We can throw it in the chat, yeah, just in case. It's on Jotform, as I mentioned before. If you can, this is just a guiding principle for whenever you're applying for things in this space. I always suggest to use a Google Doc or a Word doc to kind of workshop your answers, and then copy and paste those answers into the final application when you're sure of those answers, and then hit submit. Again, hit that submit button a few hours before 11:59 Eastern Standard Time on January 9th. Do not wait. I'm going to say this again. Do not wait until 11:58 to hit submit. I've done it many times, and I've been, I've regretted it because it ended up spinning. You get that wheel of death there that just keeps spinning, and then it's like 12:01 and then nothing happens, right? Don't do that. We want you to apply. So please apply a few hours before 11:59 p.m. on Monday, January 9th, 2023. If you can get it in before the new year, even better. But if you must, on January 9th, let's try to get it in by 5 p.m. Yeah? Okay. Next slide, please. And that link is now in the chat, by the way. So now we're going to walk through the actual application. So if you do have any questions about this as we go along, please put them in the chat, because we will circle back to the chat to respond to those questions. But as part of the application, there are 4 components. There are identity questions, all about you. And most of those questions are open for you to respond to and fill in yourself, as opposed to making it, multiple choice or et cetera. There are narrative questions that are more about your practice, your practice and your vision, and then your project description, which is more specific to your project, like what it is and how it works. And then supplementary information where you can upload an optional video. Again, the video is optional, but you're welcome to submit it. And I will say that I've enjoyed, I've enjoyed watching those videos in the past. All right, so application, hold on a second. I'm trying to see it on my screen because my screen is super small. So in terms of the identity questions, hold on, my screen is taking forever now. All right, in terms of those identity questions, as I expand, so you'll have name, obviously, that is your given name. You can include your artist name here as well, if that makes you feel comfortable. Demographic questions all about you, right? Again, your pronouns, your address, that's what race, ethnicity, your age, gender identity, how you define yourself, sexual orientation, and ability, of course. That these questions, we're asking these questions, just so you know, we're asking these questions to ensure that we have a rounded group of identities. We want to ensure that we're reflecting our communities as fully, as best as we can. Sorry, I was reading the chat. We want to make sure that we are representing as many identities as we can. Obviously, with 7 to 10 folks, we may not get to everyone this cohort, but we want to ensure with the responses to these questions that we are representing a broad stroke of identities. You're going to talk about your practice. Are you an artist, a culture worker, educator, organizer, activist? Same reason. You'll include your bio, 200 words. This could be a bio that already lives on your site that you copy and paste. That is fine. A bio that's more reflective of this project if you want. Like, for instance, I know I have various bios depending on what projects I'm applying to. So you can tweak your bio so that it's more applicable for this, but I would always suggest creating a bio that is broad stroke, that includes all your different capabilities, experiences, et cetera, whether as an artist, an organizer, or whatever is relevant to this project. Then there's a question that's really important. Are you an individual or collective? And if you are a collective, we're asking who is going to be your representative. So like, for instance, and also what is your structure for sharing power and knowledge within the collective? So as we were saying earlier, or Lisa was saying this earlier, so let's say we have a presenter workshop and a cohort meeting, and only there are 3 of you in your collective, but only 1 of you can attend. How is that person, collecting notes from that meeting and sharing back to the group? What is your structure for sharing information? What is your structure for sharing power? Is only one person always showing up, and relaying back? We understand that there are different experiences, different situations that everyone is, taken care of at the moment. We saw that during COVID, and I feel like it's even harder now. So we understand if only one of you can show up consistently, but how are you ensuring that everyone is gaining that same insight that one person who's showing up is gaining? How are you ensuring that everyone is carrying the load of the project, and that the onus is not falling on one person's shoulders solely? So we definitely want to know that you're thinking about that, what that structure looks like, and how you'll be working together. Yes, I see Tracy's question. I'm sorry, I'm throwing that in there real quick. Does this mean an established long-term resident and not someone who goes there to live for the length of the program? That's correct. When we say New York City residents, we're talking about people who live in New York City, not someone who's just moving here specifically for the residency program. So if you're just moving, if you're thinking you're just moving here for the residency program, you will be ineligible to apply. So components in terms of the narrative questions. How did you hear about this opportunity? 50 words max, easy breezy. And that could be, oh, I heard it from A4's newsletter, or, oh, I saw it on social media through MoCADA, or a friend told me, etc. You can just, answer that. What is your experience within the two communities identified? 300 words max. So you can take your time here to kind of express, how you identify. Maybe you are, maybe your heritage is Korean, or maybe your heritage is Haitian. I don't know why I keep saying Haitian today. But you can absolutely list that out. You can also talk about, what your relationship may be to the other community if you're not of Asian or African descent. So how do you identify? What is your experience there? Have you done work within this, within these two communities? And if so, share that. Do you live in these communities? Share that. What exposure have you had within these communities, essentially? What is your intention for participating in this residency? Intention is key, right? So again, we talked about having an idea and having a project, but what is your intention? Why is building solidarity so important to you between these two communities? Why is creating a project that builds a bridge between these communities so important to you? What has inspired you? Was it the marches of 2020 and 2021? Was it something before that? Was there something personal that kind of inspired you down this path, and this has been your lifelong work? If so, let us know by adding it here to what is your intention for participating in this residency. And if you have a vision for what you hope to create, or how you believe your project will impact these communities, say that here for sure. Next section. Project description. Okay, so what is your project? How will it center and involve these communities identified? Is really, really, really important. Take your time to respond to this question. Because it's very easy. I'm sure Lisa and Justine can attest to this. We see a lot of proposals from artists, organizers, etc., where the project may seem feasible, but the intention here, again, this idea of centering these communities and uplifting them to build solidarity is key. So that is essential. That has to be a central point of this project description. How are you involving the communities identified? Are you building this outside of those communities and then bringing it back? Or are you building it within the communities and engaging them throughout the process? Tell us that, really flesh that out as much as you can. Is this an existing project? Yes or no? Again, it can be an existing project that's being involved, for sure. I'm thinking about Jamel Mims from our last cohort, or even Rohan. Jamel is a rapper who's been rapping in Mandarin and in English and touring. For his project, he wanted to expand his project over the digital AR, VR space, but then also continue his tour. In terms of building solidarity in these communities through the shared language and experience of hip hop. So it can be an existing project. It just has to be an expansion of that project in some way, shape, or form. How will you build this project? Who will you work with? How will you build it? What will it take? Will it take a camera? What will it take? What is the infrastructure in terms of how you build this project, and what do you need? And what do you have? What resources do you have access to build this project? Why is now the time for this project? Is it relevant now? Did something spark for you now in this moment to make you realize that this project was necessary now? I love the fact that in the last cohort, the idea of friendship and love and community kept coming up over and over and over again between the different projects. And it was a testament to the need for solidarity. It was a testament for what was happening with the Stop Hate, Asian hate movement and the Black Lives Matter movement, and the solidarity that was happening between those marches. So I think, why is now the time for this project? If there is data or an event that has happened that kind of sparked this engine for you, let us know. If there is something personal that's happening within your life that's the impetus for this, let us know. Try to articulate the now and the relevancy of the now. Why now? Community impact. How will your project benefit the communities identified? Again, we're centering communities, right? So it's really important to discuss not only how are you engaging in those communities, but how will they be transformed by the work that you're producing? And now I know transformed can sound like super overwhelming and super like beyond you. Do not let imposter syndrome get you, please. We know that anything from community conversations to workshops to artwork, to even telling people that you're engaging in a project about building solidarity impacts the communities. But how can it further benefit them? How can it change their lives? Tell us about that. Or tell us how you hope to change their lives. Timeline. Be reasonable here with your timeline, guys. You have 4 months, right? So, and we're not expecting all of the projects to be fully executed by the end of that 4-month period. But we want to see that you're thinking about using that time wisely to ladder up to your overall vision, to ladder up to that final execution, that final project share out, and then also the public share out, because we always have a public share out in some way, shape, or form. So how will you use the time during the residency to build a new or build upon an existing project? Tell us. It doesn't have to be like April 15th, I'm going to do this, but it could be more of a broad stroke. Like in March, this will happen. In April, this will happen. In May, this is what I'm looking forward to or hoping to be, et cetera, et cetera. Next. Again, we have a supplementary information section. This is completely optional. You are not, this doesn't impact your application in any way, shape, or form, but we would love you to include your website or Instagram or other social handles if you're still on Twitter, because we know Twitter is going away soon. But if you have a Twitter, Instagram, etc., or other platforms, please include that information there. We do sometimes, explore that further in the review process, so it doesn't hurt to add, but it doesn't harm you if you don't add, just so you know. Include a headshot, permission, a photo credit, so that in the event that you are selected as part of cohort 2, that we do have your headshot and we have the appropriate photo credits. Please do not share a headshot that you do not want us to use. Okay, I see G1 like smiling. Please do not use a headshot you don't want us to use. Any additional information? So we've asked a lot of questions and we've made space for for you to chime in and give us your kind of definitions of things, your kind of exploration and vision for things. But if there's anything that you feel that you want to include that we haven't made space for in terms of the line of questioning, please add it in the any additional information section. And that could be, hey, when I was a kid, I worked on a project that was really similar, and that has inspired me now, so I'm taking it a step further. Or I've always been inspired by these thought leaders who are doing this work, and this is the work in particular that inspires me now in this process. Whatever that information may be, add it there. It's space for you to expand however you see fit. And then the last component, obviously, is the optional video. 1 to 2 minute video, please, no longer than 2 minutes. 1 to 2 minute video telling us more about yourself and about your project, and have fun with it. I will also say this. I know as, artists, makers, etc., we want to take ourselves super, super seriously. You're welcome to do that. But also know that we want to see you. We want to see your personality. We want to know who you are. So feel free to be yourself. This is a safe space. 1 to 2, and this video won't be posted anywhere. It's just for our review. So 1 to 2 minute video telling us more about you and your project. Next slide. Again, that timeline. Again, well, even before I get into the timeline, Applications are open right now. The link is in the chat. If you didn't see it, we'll post it again. The deadline is January 9th, 2023. Again, applications close at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please get those applications in long before 11 o'clock. And if you can, use a Google Doc or a Word doc to kind of workshop your answers and then copy and paste into the final jot form. The link is in the chat. On January 10th, the day after you apply, those applications will be shared with a review committee of about 5 panelists, which includes mentors, or i.e. Residents from the previous cohort, the inaugural cohort, in addition to other thought leaders within the communities. On January 24th, and they'll have about 2 weeks to review those applications. From there, on January 24th, there will be an application panel review where we will finally select the 7 to 10 artists, organizers, educators for cohort 2. On January 25th, it starts moving pretty fast. The cohort is notified that they have been selected to be a part of cohort 2. And then on February 7th, the residency begins. But between January 25th and February 7th, we have the public share out by cohort 1, which cohort 2 will be invited to. I think that's January 29th. Did I say that right? Or is that
30th?
The January 30th. Thank you. So January 30th, there'll be a public share out by cohort 1, which cohort 2 will be invited to. So you can mix and mingle with cohort 1 and continue this extended family. Then on February 7th, the residency officially begins. And then on May 30th, the residency ends. So you have about 4 months between the beginning of the residency and the end of the residency to build out that project. So selection criteria, here we go. As I mentioned, there will be a panel of 5 reviewers, which includes community leaders, thought leaders, and artists, including former Bandung residents, as I mentioned. It's a holistic review. We'll be looking for the potential for growth, a willingness to share, collaborate, and learn. The feasibility of execution of the project. Can it be done? Or is this something that's very pie in the sky that we'll never be able to realize? But it's a beautiful idea, right? We want to make sure that this is possible and that it's reasonable and feasible, because obviously at the heart of this is about building solidarity. So we want to ensure that these projects can do that. There's a clear set of goals and personal benchmarks. So again, when you're thinking about the timeline, think about those benchmarks. Think about those milestones. How are you reaching them? How are you reaching those goals? Include as much detail as you can there. And when I say detail, I'm not talking about the actual date, like March 15th. I'm talking about detail as specifically about the benchmark. Like in March, I will complete these photographs, et cetera, et cetera. And then final selections will be selected to balance backgrounds, projects, identities, and learnings to foster a diverse cohort. As I mentioned before, that is what the first section of the application is all about, where you tell us all about you. And also the narrative section. That is also very helpful for us in terms of balancing out these backgrounds. Okay, so if you have questions, Justine is amazing. Can I just tell you? Like, I'm so jealous that Justine is on Lisa's team. I'm trying to find a Justine. But Justine is your person to reach out to if you have any questions about this residency program. Please, please, please. In the subject line, please include Bandung questions. If you do have questions that we don't answer today or that we don't get to today, please, in the subject line, write Bandung question and submit that to Justine, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. So now it's time for the Q&A section. I hope that was helpful, guys. Let me know in the chat if you have questions. I'm trying to go back up. Okay.
There was one, Louise had a question. I think that we answered the question about residency. That is, but Louise asked, if I'm a New York City resident, could I propose a project that engages a community leader partner who doesn't live here, but can travel to New York easily for community building activities? They're not going to be a co-applicant.
So how will they be involved?
Yeah, Louise, do you want to chat with us? You can unmute yourself.
Oh, sure. Yeah, thank you so much for this great overview. I'm excited about the program. There's a person that I really enjoy working with and was thinking about them for facilitation of a community building activity for something that I wanted to propose. So wanted to know if that was an acceptable way to engage someone. So I would be the main person, but I deeply appreciate and respect their facilitation skills.
That seems reasonable to me.
Same.
Okay, thank you so much.
I mean, it's just that they're not going to be paid, you know, it's going to have to come out of your, you know, your honorarium.
Yes.
Anybody else have questions?
Hold on. Is this one? Oh yeah, Tracy and Chloe were both asking about, do you have to live in New York? And yes, this is a New York City based program. You have to live in New York. The reason why we don't provide a stipend for housing or living expenses, airfare or transportation is because this residency literally is made for New York City residents. So the idea here is that you would need such, unless it's involving production in some way. So like, as an example, Hidemi was shooting between, who's a New York City resident, was shooting between New York and I believe it was Tokyo. So in that sense, she used some of her production expenses towards her travel, but she was New York City based.
Yeah, and it's for, I guess, if you have an idea of the community that you'd like to work with, if you've already worked with, you know, I think if you're not part of New York, if you don't live in New York, I think it would be harder to build community here immediately for this kind of work. I mean, this is kind of sustained practice. It's not, a lot of your community is already based, or they're based here. Is that what you're saying? Do you want to come off mute and share with us? I don't know if it's Cassia, or Chloe.
I think it was.
Hello.
Okay.
Hi. Sorry, I'm like very excited to hear about you guys, and I am in New York right now, which is very fun that I'm on your time. But so a lot of my community is based here. I would say 50% of my peers are based here, and I am actively growing as a LA native and LA based person. I'm actively growing community and fostering meetups with creatives and women, people of color, to foster conversations to, uplift my community out there. But I'm interested in, connecting with my community that lives here too. And so that's why this residency was interesting, because it offers a space and a time and like a small stipend. And as one who has enough funding for like a couple quarters left, I feel like, oh, maybe it would be a good space to, get involved in your community and then merge my community that's already in New York with yours. So that's the perspective that I am coming from. But yeah, thank you for your time as well. I appreciate it.
And thank you for your question. To be clear, you're currently in New York, but you're between New York and LA. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And you have communities in both spaces, you're saying?
Exactly.
And the project would live between those two cities?
I mean, there's opportunities to include that into that, conversation. Yeah, I'm always trying to facilitate, bringing BIPOC awareness and opening conversations, and regardless of destination location, period.
I think one of the reasons why we're focusing on New York City, in addition to this being, where we're based, our organizations are based, is the fact that much of our funding comes from New York State in New York City. So, and the intention there is that it should benefit New York City residents in some way, shape, or form. So that's why we're really honing in on that. If your project is benefiting New York City residents and you are based here, even if you're bi-coastal, I would be open to it. But it could not benefit and I hate to say this out loud
No,
because
of course.
I love community in general, but it's like, it
Yeah.
could not support West Coast residents because, again, the funding is specifically for New York City residents. Would you agree, Lisa?
Yeah, I would agree with that as well, though. So I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will take that into consideration. If there's an opportunity to put in the application, we'll be in touch, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you.
I love that. No, thank you. Thank you for giving me the space to come in and join the New York community potentially, or at least have a platform to speak to you. So thank you. I appreciate
Absolutely.
that.
Okay. Tian just wanted to learn. So thanks, Justine, for dropping that in the chat. Tian was interested in learning about the projects from the inaugural cohort. So yeah, they're listed on our website. They're probably listed on the MoCADA site too.
Definitely.
And yeah, you can learn about them there. And they're on our social media, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And
you can also follow the artists.
Yeah, you can follow the artists, and you can come on January 30th to the share out and have them tell you, hear from the horse's mouth.
Oh, I know. Someone keeps asking about the Bay Area. That is like the #1 question that has been consistent between the two cohorts. Unfortunately, we do not have a program in the Bay Area, but can do some research and see if there's some out there. I'm sure there are. There have to be.
Yeah. The share out, will it be in real life or virtual? It will probably be in real life, but we will stream it and record it because we've done that in the past. Hopefully we can do that again with minimal technical issues. It might be a problem. We won't do it at Governor's Island.
Definitely not.
There. But we'll do it. We'll find a place that has good Wi-Fi to do the share out in January.
Any other questions? Come on, don't be shy, guys. We're here.
There's a chance. Okay. Well, that's fine. Again, you can email Justine J. Lee at aaartsalliance.org, Bandung question in the subject line. Check out the FAQs and we will add your question. Oh, okay. Danny has a question.
Yes.
She's an individual artist with a community project idea, general anxiety that prevents her coming into spaces. Could I have a friend who's an artist or writer speak about the project for me when we're supposed to meet in person? Who's also a New York resident. I think wow, let's see. I mean, are you working with this person as a collaborator? Danny?
I don't think Danny is going to speak, but if you don't feel comfortable speaking,
No,
Danny?
you could just drop it in the chat if you want to. That would be fine. And if you don't,
hi.
Oh, there we go.
I don't know how to use my phone, and also the anxiety thing doesn't help. No, I get she would be helpful in the way of sometimes I have a problem speaking up, so she does help me with my thought process, but she doesn't really help me generate the idea, if that makes any sense.
So she would be someone that you invite on the team as a consultant, I guess, but not a collaborator.
Yeah, like a consultant, I guess, but also someone who can talk for me. I have a really big fear of talking and sometimes entering spaces, or I can just email you guys to talk more about it.
I was just gonna say, you're doing a phenomenal job right now.
Yeah, if you want to email us, we can address your question directly.
Thank you.
Sure.
For a performance-based project with installation components, do you support the project with physical exhibition space once it is selected? Haha.
I guess it depends on how much space you need.
That part.
If it's a gallery space, or if it's the Park Avenue Armory, we need to know, what kind of, we can help you locate a space. A4, we personally, we do not have a physical space, an exhibition space. We just have an office.
But we do. We have 4 spaces that can be used. So depending on when the physical exhibition space is needed, for how long, the size, etc., like all of those matter. So if you have those details in advance, that will be helpful. So if you just include that in your application.
Yeah.
And that could be indoor or outdoor, by the way. I should mention that.
Hi, this is Sian. I do have a question. Does the project have to be executed during the residency period, or could it be executed sometime after?
Do you want to answer that, Lisa?
Well, it doesn't have to be, it has to be in progress. It doesn't have to be completed during the residency program, because we know movement building, community organizing, like all of these things take time. So we don't expect you to be able to build a bridge of solidarity in 4 months. So, but we want to know what you are doing during the period of the residency.
I see. And I came in a little bit late, so let me try to understand. So during the period of the residency, the requirement is participate in these meetings, have conversations, and talk about projects and build community in that way. Beyond that, obviously it's also creating our own projects. Is there any other requirements to fulfill this residency?
Working on your project. That's about it.
Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, TD. Okay, well, everyone, like I said, feel free to email us if you have additional questions, and we look forward to seeing your applications. All right, we'll post this also. It'll be on the A4 YouTube channel and on the MoCADA site. Yep. So yeah, thanks everybody for attending.